The Trojan War actually happened.
Yes, strongly agree.
Disagree. Can I put
Oh
that here?
my gosh! We're starting strong here. It's literally blood and iron, my friends. He disagree. Why does he disagree? Trojan War he thinks is mythological? Ooh, we'll have a good time here. Well, let's see why. It didn't happen. Yeah, he's looking at the, well, let's see. Let's see. He's good. This guy is good. So let's see if he changes my mind.
Here, I don't know if this. Can we do strongly disagree or strongly disagree?
Strongly.
I'm only going to put
Full
disagree
nonsense.
actually, because I think there's a way that you can.
There is, of course. I mean, there's the contemporary material from the Bronze Age that suggests that there was a conflict. You know, okay,
Yeah.
so the Greeks went over the sea, sure.
Yeah.
They had some interaction with the region, possibly there was some raiding. There may even have been a war.
To give context, when he says the region, it means the Anatolian Peninsula. Because do remember that we do know what, I'm sure they're going to say it, but we do know that historical Troy has been identified with the city of Wilusa. The city of Wilusa, it's in Turkey, specifically on the hill of Hisalik. It was found by Schliemann between 1870 and 1890. I did look into this deeply. That's why I'm so strongly in favor of the idea that it did happen. So we know Troy is there. When he says the Greeks, I would say, yeah, we know the Mycenaeans and the Achaeans absolutely went over the sea into that region and specifically participated in anti-Hittite war. There is a whole league about it. Maybe I'll mention it. I don't want to speak too much. But yeah, Troy is like, the war happened.
This isn't the Trojan War as we know it. Like, we have no reason to believe that events happened the way they happened, that there was a 10-year siege, that there were specific figures involved. I mean, all of that stuff.
I disagree monumentally here. Ooh, this is gonna be a long one, guys. The siege absolutely happened. The siege happened. We know that. We normally date it to 1334 BC. Is that a correct dating? Who knows? If you have ever seen the description of Wilusa, historical Troy, there are two specific archaeological sectors, Troy A and Troy 7A, I think it was. No, Troy 6 is the one with imposing bastions, are exactly how they are described in the Iliad. And we know there was a siege. And in Troy 6, we know there was a fire, and there is evidence of earthquake. And all of this is compatible with the description in the Iliad. The other thing about it, we know that there was a specific princess that was married to someone in that specific area, and that created conflicts between the Greeks and the Hittite. And because of this city, like, there is a lot of overlapping. There are 22 documents in the capital of Hattusha, which is the capital of the Hittite Empire. And if you read the documents, they specifically mention the Mycenaeans, and they give us names. And when the Hittitologists translate or transliterate these names, we have Priam, we have Alexander as one of the puppet kings that were used by the Hittite on Troy because Troy was taken. There is so much evidence that I don't know why. Maybe he's joking, maybe he's trolling, and he's going to say, no, I'm joking. And at this point, I don't know. I'm confused, honestly, because the archaeological evidence supports precisely the description in the Iliad as we have it. Atarsia is one of the leaders with 100 chariots, absolutely Mycenaean, that goes into the coastline and starts raiding that area. Muppet King instead of Puppet King. But anyways, I'll let him speak. I'm already speaking too much.
The only person that we know who might have been involved is this figure called Alexander, who appears in some Hittite texts, who's Paris.
He's not the only one. He's not the only one. He's not the only one, Mr. Kanindike. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's not the only one mentioned.
That's it. And so, you can say that there may have been conflicts between the Achaeans and the Trojans roughly in the period of the Bronze Age, but that has nothing to do with the story that we know.
It is exactly the story that we know. I'm going to have to put it on the thumbnail, guys. I disagree. CH191. I found some of my stuff. All right. Geographic coordinates of historical Troy are confirmed on the document CH191 from the Hittite archives in the capital, Hattusha. Confirmed. That's the place. So that's another thing. See if I can find another one, but let's continue.
That's a completely separate thing.
Look, I understand your strength of disagreement for that question, but playing devil's advocate is yes, of course, when you go to the particular characters, almost certainly didn't exist, or very different.
They did exist.
Different who they were, apart from this Alexander figure from Hittite texts. But for the context, historical context, there's evidence of contact between mainland Greece and what is today Western Turkey. I was talking to Dr. Emily Hauser a few weeks ago, and we were talking about Cassandra, but also this idea in Hittite records, there's this idea of princesses, but also being like kind of priestesses at the same time, so there's that tradition, and of people being taken back to Greece from Western Turkey and being in like the Mycenaean palace, almost as kind of a political prison.
There are also Mycenaean swords that were found in the context of specific interaction. I don't know if you ever heard, there is a League of 22 cities, a confederation of city-states within the Anatolian coastline. And they were trying to get together and unite against the Hittite in an anti-imperial expansionistic Hittite confederation. So they were trying to be like, these Hittites need to stop. And the city of Troy, Wilusa, initially was part of this, but then they leave it. They stay neutral, and then they become a vassal of the Hittites. This whole confederation, it's a continuous set of raids and wars between the Mycenaeans and the Hittites, and it absolutely involved historic Troy. And then the Hittites have to reconquer it. And when they reconquer, there is a mention, actually, that's what I was telling you about. Mehmed II, Sultan of the Ottoman Turks, even in the 17th century, when he goes into Wilusa, so the historical Troy, as he enters that area, he performs, this is all written, he performs a ritual and says, yeah, because the Greeks, it's good that we have control of the city because the Greeks once came here to fight. We know that at least up to the 17th century, they knew that that was Troy. And then this kind of gets lost and recovered by Schliemann in the late 1800s. There is so much that you can say about this. And he specifically mentioned, because the Greeks were here and they set this place on fire. There is the catalogue of ships that is mentioned in the Iliad, which it's perfectly overlappable with the ships that were catalogued by the Hittites when it comes to these specific operations, raid operations of the Mycenaeans that we know happened historically.